In the 1970s, Leyland lorries became part of Britain's fight to stay on its feet. They moved goods, jobs and hope across the country while rivals closed in fast. Drivers trusted these machines with their lives. But some designs changed everything, and a few decisions would leave a mark that still sparks debate today. Starting with number 12, we have Leyland Titan. The Leyland Titan bus chassis remained in production until 1969, with the final front-engine PD, 3 models delivered to operators, including Ribble Motor Services and Southdown Motor Services. London Transport bought 2,131 Leyland Titans for London service, designated RTL and RTW, built between 1948 and 1954, and many remained in use into the mid-1970s. The Titan PD2 featured the Leyland 0600 engine, a 9.8-litre diesel unit producing 125 brake horsepower, and the chassis was designed for double-decker bodywork with passenger capacities between 56 and 78 seats. The rear-engined Leyland Titan B15 entered development in 1975, with 5 prototypes constructed between 1975 and 1977. The B15 was 9.56 metres long, 2.50 metres wide, and 4.4 metres high, and production ran from 1977 to 1984 at Park Royal Vehicles, with the first production Titans delivered in August 1978 and entering service in December 1978. London Transport ultimately took 1,125 Titans delivered across orders from 1979 through 1984, and the model featured independent front suspension, air suspension and power hydraulic brakes as standard equipment. At number 11 we have Leyland Super Comet. The Leyland Super Comet was introduced in 1958 as an updated version of the original Comet range, launched in 1947. The Super Comet featured a wraparound windscreen cab and was available with gross vehicle weights between 9 and 12 tons. The chassis was powered by the Leyland O350 engine, a 5.76-litre diesel unit producing 98 brake horsepower. And later, models received the O370 engine rated at 113 brake horsepower. The Super Comet was widely used for distribution and light haulage work, and major operators including British Road Services, Whitbread and Cooperative Wholesale Society specified the model for regional delivery routes. Production continued until the early 1970s, by which time the model had been largely superseded by the Terrier and Boxer ranges. The 3-axle export version was designated Super Comet and remained popular in Commonwealth markets, including Australia, New Zealand and South Africa. At number 10 we have Leyland Terrier. The Leyland Terrier range was introduced in August 1970 to replace the 2 higher weight models in the BMC FG range. The Terrier was available in 4 variants designated TR650, TR750, TR850 and TR950, with the numbers relating to gross vehicle weights of 6.5, 7.5, 8.5 and 9.5 tons respectively. The TR650 and TR750 were powered by the 3.8-litre diesel engine producing 69 brake horsepower at 2,600 revolutions per minute. At number 9 we have Leyland Ryver. The Leyland Ryver was originally an Albion model before being rebadged as a Leyland in 1972, following the discontinuation of the Albion name. The Reiver was a 6-wheel chassis available at 24 tons gross vehicle weight, and the model featured the Leyland 401 engine producing 115 brake horsepower, or the turbocharged 410 engine rated at 150 brake horsepower. The Reiver was built at the Scottstoun factory in Glasgow until 1980, when production transferred to Bathgate. The chassis featured a 4-spring non-reactive bogie with 4 feet 1 inch axle centres, and the rear bogie had a rated capacity of 18 tonnes on 9.00 tyres. The shortest wheelbase, Reiver had a curb weight of only 5.35 tonnes for the chassis cab, giving a body payload allowance of 18.65 tonnes at 24 tonnes gross vehicle weight. At number 8 we have Leyland Beaver. The Leyland Beaver was introduced in 1928 and remained in production until the late 1970s, making it one of Leyland's longest-running model names. The 1970s, Beaver featured the ergomatic tilt cab introduced in 1964, and the chassis was available with gross train weights up to 30 tonnes. The Beaver BV 69.32 PTR, tested by Commercial Motor in December 1968, was powered by the turbocharged Leyland 690 engine, producing 240 brake horsepower gross at 2,200 revolutions per minute. The Beaver completed Commercial Motors' 731-mile operational trial in less than 18 hours running time, and the vehicle was rated for articulated operation with 9 feet 6 inches wheelbase. Major fleet operators, including British Road Services and national carriers, specified the Beaver for trunk haulage work. The road test highlighted the Beaver's 10-speed semi-automatic transmission with an integral splitter and its strong long-distance performance at 30 tonnes gross. At number 7 we have Leyland Lynx. The Leyland Lynx range was introduced in 1968 as an ergomatic cabbed haulage, or tipper four-wheeler designed for 16 tonnes gross, with attractive unit version for 26 and 28 tonnes gross combination weight. It was launched with the fixed-head Leyland 500 series diesel, rated at 170 brake horsepower in early published specifications, with the turbocharged 510 later associated with Buffalo applications. The Lynx was aimed at regional haulage and tipper duties in the heavy rigid class, and it was part of Leyland's late 1960s into 1970s ergomatic range, rather than a model directly replaced by Marathon or Buffalo components. At number 6 we have Leyland Clydesdale. The Leyland Clydesdale was originally an Albion model introduced in the 1930s and rebadged as a Leyland in 1972. The Clydesdale was a medium-duty chassis designed for gross vehicle weights between 13.5 and 16 tonnes in rigid form and 20.3 tonnes for articulated operation. The chassis was powered by the Leyland 400 diesel engine, or the Blue Line range of Family 1 engines developed jointly between Leyland and Cummins. The Clydesdale featured a spiral bevel hub reduction rear axle, 5-speed constant mesh gearbox, semi-elliptic leaf springs, and a bolted chassis frame. The G-Series cab was built at Bathgate and offered in day cab form, with good knee room, headroom and all-round visibility. The Clydesdale was widely used as a tipper chassis by local authorities and quarry operators, and the model was built at Scotstoun until 1980. The CD44 wheel model was available in 4 wheelbases ranging from 12 feet 5.5 inches to 16 feet, and the shortest wheelbase was specifically designed for tipper applications. At number 5 we have Leyland Mastiff. The Leyland Mastiff was a heavyweight model available in both 4-wheel and 6-wheel configurations during the 1970s. The Mastiff was rated for gross train weights up to 28 tonnes, and the chassis could be specified with the Perkins 5.8 family, with period coverage quoting the Perkins 5.8 510 at 168 brake horsepower net, and later noting 170 brake horsepower for the AA version, with updates later switching to the V8 540. The model featured the G-Series cab built at Bathgate and was available with wheelbases from 9 feet 6 inches for tractor units to longer variants for rigid applications. The Super Mastiff 6-wheel variant was introduced in September 1972 as a lightweight double-drive chassis, available at 22 and 24 tonnes gross vehicle weight. The Super Mastiff featured Maudslay single reduction axles, with the rear bogie having 4 feet 1 inch axle centres and a rated capacity of 18 tonnes. The curb weight of the 12 feet wheelbase 22-tonne model was 5.70 tonnes, giving a body payload allowance of 16.30 tonnes. The chassis featured full air dual circuit brakes with 15-inch diameter drums at the front and 15.25-inch diameter drums on the rear axles. The Super Mastiff was widely specified for tipper work by construction contractors and quarry operators. At number 4 we have Leyland Bison. The Leyland Bison range was introduced in 1968 as a purpose-built 6-wheel double-drive, heavy, rigid, aimed at tipper and haulage work, and it remained a familiar sight through the 1970s in quarry, construction and bulk materials fleets. Contemporary launch coverage described 2 main versions, a tipper and a haulage model, both designed for 22 tons gross vehicle weight. The Bison shared Leyland's then new fixed-head 500 series diesel family in early specifications, and it was part of the ergomatic era heavy rigid push that helped define Leyland's 1970s working image on British sites and trunk roads. At number 3 we have Leyland Buffalo. The Leyland Buffalo entered production in 1968 as a 32-ton gross combination weight tractor unit powered by the Leyland 500 series engine. The Buffalo was initially fitted with the 510 engine, producing 212 brake horsepower at 2,200 revolutions per minute, and the chassis featured the ergomatic cab. Commercial Motor tested a Buffalo at 32 tons gross train weight in June 1975, and the vehicle recorded fuel consumption of 7.3 miles per gallon on the Scottish test route. The Buffalo Mark III was introduced in 1976 with the uprated 511 engine, producing 230 brake horsepower at 2,400 revolutions per minute. The chassis featured a fuller gearbox with ratios well matched to the characteristics of the 510 engine, allowing the Buffalo to climb Carter Bar Hill in 5th gear at 1,900 revolutions per minute. The curb weight was approximately 5.5 tons, giving excellent payload capacity for a 32-ton tractor unit. The Buffalo was also available in 6x4 form for heavy haulage work during the mid to late 1970s, and the model competed directly with the ERFB series and Foden S80 in the maximum weight category. At number 2 we have Leyland Octopus. The Leyland Octopus 8-wheel rigid chassis was introduced in the 1930s and remained in production until the late 1970s. A new lightweight Octopus was introduced in September 1975 and was claimed to be 500 kilograms lighter in chassis cab form than its nearest competitor. The 1976 Octopus was powered by the turbocharged Leyland 511 engine and featured a fuller gearbox with optional rear axle ratios of 6.25 to 1 for haulage work or 6.933 to 1 for tipper applications. The chassis was rated at 30 tons gross vehicle weight and could be driven with a Class 2 heavy goods vehicle licence. Commercial Motor tested the Octopus at 30 tons gross vehicle weight in July 1976, and the vehicle maintained 21 miles per hour throughout the Carter Bar Hill climb in 4th gear. The curb weight advantage meant the Octopus could carry a similar payload to a 32-ton articulated vehicle, although the load platform was approximately 10 feet shorter than a standard semi-trailer. The Octopus featured power steering with an integrally powered box and auxiliary ram on the second axle drag link. The model dominated tipper and heavy construction roles during the 1970s, and operators including British Road Services, local authorities and construction contractors specified the Octopus for aggregate haulage and infrastructure projects. Finally, at number 1 we have Leyland Marathon. The Leyland Marathon entered production in 1973 as Leyland's response to the Volvo F88, Scania 110 and DAF 2800 maximum capacity tractor units. The Marathon was built primarily at the AEC factory in Southall and featured a reworked version of the ergomatic tilt cab mounted 18 inches higher than normal to allow better cross-cab access. The Marathon was powered by the Leyland TL12 turbo diesel derived from the AEC 760 unit, producing around 281 brake horsepower in typical high-power specifications. The engine delivered 1,055 Newton-meters of torque, and the Marathon was designed for gross train weights up to 38 tonnes, although the UK legal limit remained 32 tonnes. Other engine options included the 200 brake horsepower Leyland L11 and Cummins engines at 250 and 330 brake horsepower. The Marathon featured a fuller range change gearbox with 9 forward speeds, and the chassis was available in day cab and sleeper cab configurations. The sleeper cab version allowed operators to meet the 40-foot maximum semi-trailer length within the 15-metre overall length limit. The Marathon 2 was launched in 1977 with improved heating and ventilation, revised cab suspension to reduce roll, and up-rated shock absorbers. Production ended in 1979 when the T45 road train range was introduced. Between 1973 and 1979, Leyland built approximately 8,000 Marathon chassis, and the model saw extensive use on Middle East trunk routes, including operations to Tehran and Doha. The T45 road train was launched in February 1980 and collected its Truck of the Year prize in January 1981.